You know, there is one thing, one question that this film series never answers throughout its entire run. What did ever happen to Paul? Hey guys, how is it all going? So, we are back with another The Friday the 13th review, and this time it's part 2 from 1981. And now this film is set 5 years after the original, so all the horrible offence that took place in Camp Crystal Lake. Of course, we have new counsellors and new young adults that go back. And unfortunately for them, there's a new killer knocking about, taking them out one by one. And unfortunately for them, but great for us, it is the start of a legend. The man, the myth, the legend. The start of one of my favourite serial killers in horror movie history ever. Jason Voorhees. So, let's get into Friday the 13th part 2. Let me just wet the whistle. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room a little bit when it comes to part 2. And as we all know, guys, and we do have to acknowledge this, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever for Jason Voorhees to be the killer. None. It makes the first movie redundant, because everything they have explained in that and then tried to explain in this just makes the first movie make no sense whatsoever. Right? So according to the first movie, Jason is dead. Right? He drowned in that lake. That's why his mother was killing the camp counsellors in 1958 and then in 1980. All because she was taking revenge on her son drowning on the camp counsellors that didn't watch him. Right? That's the whole point. All of a sudden, we get to part 2. Jason's alive. He's been living in the woods for like nearly 30 years. Never once thought to say to his mother, you know, hey, I'm still alive. You know, there's no need to go and fucking killing everybody. Like, he's... It, and what was the... Like, they never found his body. So, surely that would have been mentioned in part 1, that his body was never found. Also in part 2 as well. So taking the offence at the end of the original, right? So they never once thought it was weird that Pamela Voorhees' head isn't at the scene or a jump has been removed from her body. It's never mentioned. Not once at the end of Friday the 13th at all. So, so basically what was supposed to happen, guys, was they wanted to do an anthology series, basically what Halloween tried to do, but failed. They wanted just to do a different story every Friday the 13th movie, but the first one proved to be so popular that they decided to stick with the story involving around Camp Crystal Lake. And the most kind of, I wouldn't say logical answer, but I mean, great for us, but they decided to make Jason the killer, which doesn't make any sense. Tom Savini himself never came back for this movie because he was working on other projects. But even he said it made no sense to have Jason as the killer whatsoever. But it doesn't matter, guys, because at the end of the day, and this is my opinion, and I know there are lots of fans of the original Friday the 13th movie. I know there's a hell of a lot more than what I thought there was after my last review now. But in my opinion, I think part 2 is far superior to the original in every way. I love this sequel. I love part 2. I really do. I enjoy the characters a lot more in this movie. There's not any part of this film I got a little bit kind of bored with it. I think the pace is good in this movie. I like the kills in this movie. And overall, I just love Jason. in this movie. You know, this is when we first really truly do meet Jason. Not Jason as we get to know him, but when we first see him. And I think it's so cool looking back on these earlier movies with Jason. And I quite like how he's a bit vulnerable in this one as well. He can feel pain, he can be knocked down. He's not indestructible. He's not a Terminator. He's not how we, start to know Jason, how Jason becomes. And I love the look of Jason in this movie. I love sackhead overall Jason. He just gives off a lot more of a creepier vibe in this movie than what he does in the other ones. I think he looks great in the other ones. I'm not saying that part 2 is my favourite look of Jason. It isn't. I will get to that when I get to the movie, when I review that one. But he's a lot creepier in this. And like I say, I like some of the direction of this movie when they keep the point of view a little bit in this movie as well, like they did in the first movie. And I like some of the direction as well, where you can see his shadow walking past the cabin and stuff like that. I think it's really well shot, this movie. It looks great. And it's a lot more well acted than the first one. Not by everybody. There's a couple of performers in here that aren't great. But overall, I think the acting is a hell of a lot more better. I think our main heroine is head and shoulders far better than what Alice was in the original. I can really get behind this girl in the second one. And the actress Amy Steele, I think she does a brilliant job in this movie. I really do. And she goes toe to toe with Jason. You know what I mean? She holds her own, which is great. And I would love to have seen more of her character. I would love to have seen her come back in the originals. And I believe originally that was going to be the case. I mean, they wanted her to come back for part 3, but the actress declined. She didn't really want to come back for another one, which is quite, disappointing for us as fans, because it would have been interesting to see how the series would have progressed, would have moved forward with her. But ultimately, it didn't happen. And also, and I forgot to mention this for my Friday the 13th review originally, the music, man. I love the score of these movies. And I think if you could just take 5 seconds of a tune and just play it to anyone, you don't have to be horror fans. They will know that is Friday the 13th. It's just an iconic score. And I love it. It's one of my favourite scores in movie history out of everything ever. I love it. It's very nostalgic for me. I love the music in these movies. Also, some of the kills are great in these movies as well. I think one of the kills in this movie is one of the best in the series, and it's when that poor lad in the wheelchair gets the machete to the face, and it still made me jump when I watched it today. I'm waiting for it to come. I know what's happening, but it still made me jump up a little bit. And that kill is awesome, man. He just gets it right in the face, and then he just starts going down the stairs in the wheelchair. And it's so harsh, man, because I liked him as a character as well. And I'm just like, oh, that's brutal. He didn't have to take him out like that. But, Jason, he doesn't discriminate. He hates everybody. So that's a great kill in this. And also, I think that I quite like the ending of this as well, because it leaves it like a little bit of a mystery. And I must admit, I think the jump scare at the end of this movie is far more effective than the original. It still got me watching it today, and I'm waiting for it to happen, and it still made me jump a little bit. I think it's perfect. I love the way that's done, that jump scene at the end. All right, it doesn't make a little bit of sense what happens after that. The next minute, our main character's going into the back of an ambulance, and she's asking, "Where's Paul?" And you're thinking to yourself, well, yeah, I mean, what happened there? Did Jason just attack her and then piss off and then just left her there? It doesn't really, when you really think about it, it doesn't really make much sense. But Paul's disappeared. The only takeaway I would think about the end is that I think Jason got Paul and then ditched and then left. It's the only thing I can think of. But I have no negatives for this movie whatsoever. Like I say, this was the first Friday the 13th movie I ever watched when I was a kid. So I am looking at this through rose-tinted glasses. I do understand that. It's very nostalgic for me. I have a lot of love for part two. It's not my favourite Friday the 13th. I have three that I really love. And part two was one of them. And if I had to put them in order in the top three, and bearing in mind they're all pretty like this, they're all very close to each other, I would have part two third. There's two more Friday the 13th movies that I like just slightly more than part two. But part two is what made me really fall in love with the series and what made me really fall in love with horror movies. And Sackhead Jason, as I've got him over there, just behind me there, is still one of my favourite looks for Jason, and it holds a very, very special place in my heart. It really does. So you wouldn't be surprised, guys, that my score for Friday the 13th Part 2 is an absolute solid 5 out of 5. There's not many sequels that surpass the original, and particularly in horror circles, but I think Friday the 13th Part 2 absolutely eclipses the original, in my opinion. I think it's a far superior, far better movie. So, what do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Just let me know in the comments below. It is always a pleasure hearing from you guys. And, as always, please take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you again real soon. Take care, guys. Goodbye now.